Alright everyone, I've been waiting for a situation like this for quite a while, because I want to make a video about one of my programming workflows, which has to do with layouts. So if you're here because of programming and JUCE and layouts of GUI components, then you should just stay here. Well, the situation is the following. I have this default project, my project template project, that I still work on to have like something that can help me sketch together new plugins in the future quickly. And I currently just made a preset browser that's just a black window, can be turned on and off here by clicking on this button, which highlights the current preset name. At least that's what it's going to do. It currently just draws this random string. Yeah, the goal now is to get all the stuff in it. So I went through all my favorite plugins and some other plugins where I thought that it could have cool preset browser functions, and I made a to-do list with all the different things that I want to have in it. And now I want to use my layout class to put stuff in it. And meanwhile, use this video to show you how cool my layout class is. So first of all, I gotta say that the layout class is a class in my layout header, and you can check it out on the GitHub page of this project if you want to. What it basically does is it gets a vector of ints for both the y and the x distributions, and then it calculates a bunch of things in order to prepare certain other vectors that are called rx and ry, and then there are a lot of methods to get points from, or bounds, or even lines from this thing. So basically it's kind of an extension to the layout functions of a component itself. And my base class component, which I base all of my components on, it contains a layout object. So basically every component has a layout and then it can be used. What does it mean? It means the following thing. I can now say layout init, and then just write some numbers like the Fibonacci sequence, and maybe 20, 40, 100. And then in my paint method, I can now go ahead and say set color, and now selecting some color. Like red, and I'll say layout paint G. I think that's the method that how I called it. Maybe I also called it paint grid, I don't know. And then I can actually run this. I cannot, because it's probably paint and not paint grid. And this doesn't work yet. You can see two of the lines, but actually I forgot one thing, which is in resized, we still have to say layout resized, so that the layout know that something changed. Okay, now we see actually how the layout works. We got on the x-axis the Fibonacci sequence 1, 2, 3, 5, 8. And on the y-axis the distribution between 20, 40 and 100. So as you can see, it doesn't matter which is the maximum or the sum of all of these, it's only the relationship or the ratio between the numbers matters for the class. And that's why I like it a lot, because that means that you can just plug in random numbers, and as long as they kind of relate to each other in a good way, then it will work. So I will just go back to the default thing, which is 1.1 in my opinion, and just start writing out some stuff, I guess. So the first thing, or actually first of all, I want to change the color a little bit. I want to choose something that is not only less aggressive, but also transparent, so that we can see when lines overlap. And now I want to start doing some stuff. So first of all, I want to have an area with a close button. So basically, let's say it has this width, and then there is a large portion of the window that has, well, at the moment, nothing. Let's see if that works. Yeah, this would be the area of our close button now. Actually, it would be pretty small if this was the size. So let's take the next lowest Fibonacci number for that. Yeah, that looks reasonable. Now the next thing that I want to show you about my layout class is that it actually has the feature to add like text to all of these things. Like you could say, what was it? Layout. By the way, why doesn't it not show the IntelliSense stuff at the moment? It's kind of weird, but anyway, I just look at how I wrote it somewhere else. Alright, I called it label because we want to label certain things. So we want to put a label somewhere, which is the X for the close button, and it's at 1, 1 with the width 1 and the height 1, and it's I could say that it's quadratic by saying true. And now it should draw that X into this corresponding place as well with the same color. Now this didn't work because I have to give it the G as well. So now we have this little pseudo close button, and that's also how I made these two buttons that don't exist yet and this one. So what I want to show you here in this video is especially how you can use my layout class to just sketch together some UI elements without having to programming them already. So the next feature that I want to have in my preset browser is showing the current preset's name like in the middle of this thing. So what I could do about that now, I could just say layout label current preset name at this point. And it's of course not quadratic, you know. Yeah, that looks reasonable. Well, the thing is, as you can see, these bounds descriptions here, they are not in pixels, but they are in relation to the stuff that you have in this array. So when you are configuring your array, you always have to rewrite all this stuff. And I will show you what that means now, because I want to actually have some more stuff in here. I want to have the previous preset button on 3 and the next preset button on 4. But we don't have so many things on here yet. So let's just add some more. Let's just see how that looks now, I guess. Or should we immediately make them quadratic? I would say yes, let's try that. Alright, cool. Now we have some more buttons, but we don't have the margin at the end, which looks a little bit offsetting. Let's have a little margin everywhere so that it looks a little bit more pleasant. Cool. The next thing that I want to do is actually having a list of presets, I think. Or is it the next thing that I want to do? Let's see, what do we have already? We have close browser. Oh yeah, the next thing that we might want to have is maybe, well, that's not easy to say because I want to have a search bar and it should be pretty much up here somewhere. Maybe if this thing is clicked and a new name is being typed in there, then it could search for that in the list that will be down here. But then it wouldn't make sense to have these buttons here. And those buttons are here already anyway. Really hard to tell. Maybe I'm just going on with something else. So the other things that I have in here are some of these things that you often have in drop-down menus, like save patch as, save as default patch. But I don't see where I could put in a drop-down menu here yet. Or maybe next to the X? Yeah, that sounds reasonable. Let's just put it there for now. We can still put it somewhere else some other time. And now you can see how I have to adjust the other things, because now this is 2. So this has to be 3 and 4 and 5. Maybe we just put that here for later so we can think of it. And then we already have a lot of these features in there that I want to have. And now the next thing is that I might want to have like 2 different panels in the inside of the preset browser, and one of them will be the inspector that shows further information for the currently selected patch, and the other side will be the patch browser sort of thing, the list where you can select patches. There will have to be a distinction on this level, which is maybe 1313 or something like that. Of course, now this bar has to have twice the size, and these things will be shifted further by 1. And now I can say layout, label G, and say this is the tags filters, or no, let's call it the inspector view. And it starts on 3, but on the Y value 2. Now the first thing that we have on 2, and then 1 1 false. And now basically the same thing, but X is 4. And then this is the list of patches. So yeah, let's check this out. What kind of feeling this gives us. That would be very interesting to know. Okay, so now this would be how it would look like. And I immediately see that I don't like it a lot. And the reason for that is because I don't think the inspector view needs to be as big as the list of patches. And also, I don't like that it only starts after this point and wastes so much space at the side. So let's actually move it a little bit back. Maybe to 1. And then it needs to have a bit more width. And this thing also needs a little bit more width then. And now the relationship between these must change. Maybe like this. All right. I think that looks pretty good. I want to make it a little bit more clear. The where there are overlapping lines by setting the alpha value of the color a little bit down. Yeah, now we can see clearly that this goes all the way up to here. And yeah, probably there will have to be some sort of scroll bar. So let's take one of these away and then have a scroll bar. I don't know how I could describe a scroll bar in words. Let's just do something like this. Let's see if that looks a little bit like a scroll bar. Of course it will just look weird, but maybe it's good enough that we can remember that it should be a scroll bar. Oops, this should have been 1x further down the line. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that actually looks pretty decent in my opinion. Now I'm just thinking, if this is the inspector view and this is the list of patches, then where do I select or deselect filters so that the list of patches becomes smaller? Probably not in the inspector view of one single patch. So there needs to be another panel somehow. Should I put it below or above the inspector view? I think I'll put it below actually. So let's just use the same numbers here, 21 and 8. Now, of course, this has to be twice. No, this one has to be twice as big now. No, this one. And this one too. And put something into the last row. Tags, filters, etc. Maybe the scroll bar belongs here. Yeah, that would make sense. Or the search bar, I mean. Even though it does make sense to have the search bar on top, because that's my preferred way of searching for stuff. So I don't know, it should be pretty much accessible. And there would actually be an argument to put this above the inspector view. So let's maybe shift that around. So the inspector view goes to 3. And this thing goes to 2. Let's put them here so that it's kind of less weird. Filters, search bar, and okay, now if I didn't make a mistake now, then it should be all right. Okay, of course I still made a mistake. I forgot to switch the sizes around, which is like this way around. Okay, so now tags, filters, search by stuff can be selected here. Inspector view is here, list of patches, is here scroll bar, current preset name, a drop down menu with stuff like save preset, load preset, etc. What's the name for this row, for this line that's always up here, where you can click on things to have them resorted in a different way? That's actually something that I would like to have as well. So there would be another 2. And it would mean that everything has to move down a little bit. At least everything that is on the right side, which is the list of patches. And the scroll bar now needs to be a little bit higher. And the inspector view, it's on the left side, so it probably doesn't matter. But this thing now needs to have twice the size, the height. And now I can probably just do this. But what's the name of this bar? Bar with tags or with sortables, yeah, let's call it like that. And now it can be of height 1 and of course a little bit higher than the list of patches. And if I didn't make a mistake now, then it should look fine. And the thing about this layout stuff is you can often make mistakes, but it rarely really matters. Okay, this bar with sortables is quite big. And that's because I put the number into the wrong row, apparently. That's also something that sometimes happens. No problem. Just switch it around. Nice. So this is where the bar would appear. Now we can actually turn off the layout grid so that we can only see the actual labels a little bit better. And then it will become more obvious if the layout itself makes a lot of sense. Currently there is a little issue. The inspector view and the tags filter stuff is intersecting very harshly. So this needs to go down 1 Y value. All right, that's great. So now we have something to work with, something that we can like look at while we are actually implementing this preset browser. And now we can fill it with live. So let's just start with something very simple, something that will just like give you a basic idea what you can do with the layout function that actually implements the stuff, which is this close button here. Okay, so now let's go back to the overview about this header file, and we see that we have a a button patch browser, the one that opens the patch browser. And now we have the patch browser itself, and the patch browser itself doesn't have a lot of stuff in it yet, actually nothing at all. So let's actually make a close button. Click here to close the browser. Don't be surprised, this is not JUCE button, it's a self-made button class, so it has different arguments. The first argument is my utility object, because that's always in my components, and the other one is the tooltip that is shown when hovering over it and stuff. Now I have to implement function. I can make multiple on-click functions for the button, and one of them will be implemented now. And what it basically does is set visible false on this thing. It also needs to look like something. Make text button, or what was the function? Button text. Alright, I need to give it the button, the text, and I forgot what the other arguments were, and IntelliSense currently doesn't help me, so let me check what the function was. Make text button. Okay, the button, the text, if it's toggleable, and if yes, then which toggle state it has. So this is not toggleable, it will always be the same function, which is closing. So false. And yeah, no, not sure if everything is correct now because it looks so weird. No, seriously, why can I not see the IntelliSense stuff now? Is it because I'm recording with OBS? Anyway, I can code like that. Who cares? Now in resized, after resizing the layout, I can just say layout place close button and give it the exact arguments that I had planned in this paint method now, which are 1, 1, 1, 1, true. Now I can comment this out and just see if it works. Make text button. Make text button. Okay, great. Now I have a close button that closes the window again. So I don't have to click here to close it, and it makes it a little bit more apparent that I can close the preset browser again, that I will not be stuck here, which is a very useful feature, I suppose. Yeah, and that's how easy it is to use the layout class. I will not implement the other features now in the same video because it is quite long and most people don't watch my videos for such a long time. I would just want to encourage you that you can just check out the code for my layout class in the GitHub repository of this project that will be linked in the description. And if you want to stick around, you can just look at the class here while I'm explaining some of the basics. The basics is just you give it a component, which is JUCE component, by the way, so you don't need my custom component system for that. I should have mentioned that in the beginning, so because most of my videos are like, yeah, that's my custom stuff and you can only use it if you use all my custom stuff, but this is actually something you can use on all of your stuff. And it has like these vectors that I was talking about, but as you can see, they are float and not int. You give it an int vector for simplicity, but it will make float vectors from that for versatility. You have to call init on it so that it starts doing its thing, and its thing is taking the x distribution and y distribution, and then it reserves space on these arrays, and it will first of all come up with a sum of these arrays so that it can make a relative value from that, and then will normalize the inputs, and while doing that, putting that into the rx raw and ry raw arrays. So this will make the relative values from that are not absolute. And then in resized, every time resize is called, we get the bounds from the component as float for higher precision, and then we just multiply the width and height with the raw values so that we can get it mapped to the whole bounds. And then you have all these nice little functions like getting a specific point, getting bounds, and most of these functions are just the operator, which means that you can actually write the same thing like this: close button, set bounds, layout 1111 to nearest int, because it returns the float rectangle. So this is also a way to do it if you want to use it on things that are not components. If you want to like pre-save a rectangle and then do something with that, that's totally possible. Or like doing this in order to get a point from it. Stuff like that, you know? And a lot of these methods look rather cryptic because I was working on them for a long time, and it might not always look very reasonable at first, but it works. So it shouldn't be touched. And there are some other functions like bottom, top, and right. Bottom, for example, is used in my plugin for the tooltips bar. Here, as you can see, the tooltips bar is always at the bottom, no matter how many elements I put in here. And for example, when it comes to this component that has these things, then this green rectangle is made with right. So there are also some functions that will get you directly just an X and a Y value. There are the place functions. There is the paint function that will just paint the grid. And there is the labeling function that will just draw a label with whatever color and font you currently have selected. And that's already all there is to it.